I documented the last search and rescue mission in Graywood Forest. I need you to understand something before I tell you what happened in those woods. I need you to know that I was a skeptic, a cynic even. 23 years in search and rescue, and I'd heard every wild story, every conspiracy theory about missing persons cases. I dismissed them all, but what I found in Graywood Forest didn't just shake my beliefs. It shattered my understanding of what's possible in this world. The briefing was supposed to be routine. Another missing persons case in Graywood, the same forest where 74 people had vanished over the past 16 years. Hikers, hunters, teenagers on camping trips. The pattern was always the same. They'd enter the forest, their phones would go dark, and they'd never come out. No bodies, no signs of struggle. Just gone. My team assembled in the ranger station on the morning of October 14th. There were 6 of us. Sarah Mitchell, our tracker, had worked these mountains for 15 years. Marcus Chen, our communications specialist, could set up a radio relay in his sleep. The twins, David and Daniel Kovacs, were our rope specialists. Then there was Dr. Cummins. Emma Hartwell, brought in because the Forestry Service wanted a behavioral analyst on site, and me, Robert Hayes, team lead, counting down the days to retirement. The ranger who briefed us was a woman named Patricia Graves. She looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. Dark circles under her eyes, fingers trembling as she spread the map across the table. "This is different," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "This time we found something." She clicked on a projector. The image that appeared made my stomach clench. It was an aerial photograph of a section of Graywood taken 3 days prior. In a clearing about 8 miles from the nearest trail, you could see structures, tents, shelters made from branches and tarps, clothes hanging from lines strung between trees. "Jesus," Sarah breathed. "How many people are we looking at?" Patricia's hand shook as she changed the slide. "We don't know. The site is approximately 2 acres. We counted at least 40 distinct shelters from the air. But there's more." The next image showed what looked like a garden. Rows of plants carefully tended, a makeshift well, tools lined up against a fallen log. "This isn't a camp," Marcus said. "This is a settlement. We sent a drone over yesterday," Patricia continued. "It functioned normally until it crossed into the clearing. Then the feed went dead. We haven't recovered it." Dr. Hartwell leaned forward. "Have you seen any people in these images?" But the site appears maintained. Fresh clothing on the lines. The garden has been recently watered. Someone's there. I studied the map. The clearing was deep, really deep. 8 miles through dense forest with no established trails. It would take us the better part of a day just to reach it. "What's our objective?" I asked. Patricia looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes that made my skin prickle. Fear. Raw, unfiltered fear. Locate any survivors. Document the site. And if possible, understand what happened to them. We entered Graywood at dawn. The forest was beautiful in that early morning like golden rays filtering through the canopy, mist rising from the undergrowth. Birds sang. Squirrels chattered. Everything seemed perfectly normal. Saratoga Point, following the GPS coordinates Patricia had provided. The plan was simple. Hike in, establish a base camp at the 6-mile mark, then push to the clearing the next morning. Marcus would set up radio relays every mile to maintain contact with base. The first anomaly occurred around mile 2. Sarah stopped abruptly, raising her fist. We all froze. She was staring at something on the ground. I moved up beside her. There, pressed into the soft earth, was a boot print. Fresh, maybe hours old. "Heading deeper," Sarah said, pointing. "Size 10, maybe 10.5. Male, probably." "One of the missing persons," David suggested. "Could be." Sarah looked troubled. "But if they've been out here for months or years, why would they be walking away from the settlement?" Why would they be out here at all? We continued, but the mood had shifted. Everyone was more alert now, scanning the trees, listening to every sound. The forest felt different somehow. The bird song seemed forced. The sunlight didn't penetrate quite as deeply. At mile 4, we found the first piece of clothing. It was a jacket hanging from a low branch. North Face, expensive, relatively new. Sarah examined the tag. "This belongs to Michael Voss," she said quietly. "Went missing 7 months ago. He was a teacher from Portland." The jacket was clean. No tears, no blood, no signs of struggle. It looked like someone had carefully placed it there. "Why would he leave his jacket?" Emma asked. "It gets cold out here at night." I didn't have an answer. We bagged the jacket as evidence and kept moving. The forest was changing. I noticed it gradually. At first, the trees growing closer together, the canopy thickening overhead. The temperature dropped. The air felt heavier, harder to breathe. And the sounds, the birds had stopped singing. The squirrels had disappeared. The only noise was her footsteps crunching through the undergrowth and her breathing, loud in the oppressive silence. At mile 5, Marcus tried to set up a relay point. His radio crackled with static, then went dead. "That's not right," he muttered, fiddling with the equipment. "These units have a 15-mile range. We should still be getting queer signal from base." He tried his backup radio. Same result. Dead air. "Maybe the terrain," Daniel offered. Marcus shook his head. "I've worked at worse. This is something else. It's like something's jamming the signal." A cold finger of dread traced down my spine. "Can you get anything? Anything at all?" He tried for another 10 minutes, adjusting frequencies, repositioning the antenna. Nothing. "We're blind," he finally said. "No radio, no GPS. The satellites are there, but the signal strength is degrading. It's like the forest is blocking everything." I looked at my team. We trained for situations like this, but training and reality are different beasts. I could see the fear starting to creep into their eyes. "We continued to 6 miles, I said, keeping my voice steady. "Set up camp. In the morning we'll push to the clearing, assess the situation, and hike back out. 48 hours in and out. Everyone stays together. No one wanders off." We found the perfect spot for base camp at exactly 5047 p.m. A small clearing with good sight lines close to a creek. We set up the tents, started a fire, and tried once more to establish radio contact. Still nothing. That night, as we sat around the fire eating MREs, Emma asked the question we were all thinking. What if they don't want to be found? What? David looked at her. The missing people. What if they came here on purpose? What if this is some kind of, I don't know, commune? Then they don't want to leave. Sarah shook her head. 74 people over 16 years, all independently deciding to disappear into the same forest. That doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense, Marcus said. Why would anyone choose to live out here? No electricity, no medical care, no contact with the outside world. I stared into the fire, watching the flames dance. Maybe they didn't have a choice. Everyone looked at me. What if something happened to them? I continued. What if they tried to leave but couldn't? You're talking about them being held against their will, Emma said. By who? I didn't answer. I didn't have one. We set up a watch rotation, 2 people awake at all times. I took the first shift with Sarah. The forest at night was a different creature entirely. The darkness between the trees was absolute, impenetrable even with our high-powered flashlights. The silence was so complete it hurt my ears. No insects, no owls, no rustling of nocturnal animals. Just silence, vast and suffocating. Around 2 a.m., Sarah grabbed my arm. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. I listened. At first, There was nothing. Then I caught it a sound, distant but unmistakable. Singing. It was faint, ethereal, barely more than a whisper on the wind. Multiple voices harmonizing in a language I didn't recognize. The melody was beautiful and deeply unsettling, like a lullaby from a nightmare. Where is it coming from? I breathed. Sarah turned slowly, trying to locate the source. Everywhere. It's coming from everywhere. The singing continued for maybe 3 minutes, then faded away, leaving the silence somehow deeper than before. Neither of us slept after that. At first light, we broke camp. The plan was to reach the clearing, do a quick reconnaissance, and start heading back. Get out before nightfall. The last 2 miles were brutal. The forest had become a maze of fallen trees, thick undergrowth and terrain that seemed designed to slow us down. We had to rope down a steep ravine, cross a stream that wasn't on any map, and navigate through a section of woods so dense we had to use machetes. And then we found the markers. They were stones, stacked in careful cairns, forming a rough circle about 100 yards in diameter. Each cairn was precisely 3 feet high. The stones balanced with impossible precision. "This is a boundary," Sarah said. "A warning." "Or a welcome mat," Daniel countered. We stepped across the line of cairns. The change was immediate and nauseating. My vision swam. The ground seemed to tilt beneath my feet. Time itself felt wrong-stretched and compressed simultaneously. I looked at my watch. The second hand was moving, but irregularly. 3 seconds. 1 second. 5 seconds. 3 seconds. "Does anyone else feel that?" Emma's voice sounded. "Yeah," Marcus said. He looked pale, like we're underwater. We pushed forward, fighting against the sensation. And then, quite suddenly, we were there. The clearing opened before us like a wound in the forest. The aerial photos hadn't prepared us for the reality. The settlement was extensive, dozens of shelters built from a mixture of modern camping equipment and primitive materials. Clothes hung on lines. A garden sprawled across the southern section. Tools, cookware, backpacks, all arranged with meticulous care, but no people. "Hello," I called out. My voice sounded muffled, absorbed by the air itself. "This is search and rescue. We're here to help." Silence. We spread out, searching the shelters. Each one was occupied sleeping bags, personal items, photographs tucked into makeshift frames, but they were all empty. "Robert," Sarah's voice was tight with fear. "You need to see this." She was standing by one of the larger shelters. Inside were journals, dozens of them, stacked neatly on a wooden shelf. I picked one up. The handwriting was cramped, frantic. The entry was dated 3 years ago, day 847. "The hunger doesn't stop. We've tried everything, the roots, the berries, the bark. We eat and eat, but we're never full. Michael died again last night, 3rd time this week. His neck was broken, but by morning it had straightened. He's screaming less now. We all are. The forest doesn't want us to die. It wants us to stay." My hands were shaking as I flipped through the pages, entry after entry, describing the same nightmare. People dying from injuries, starvation, disease only to wake up the next morning. Their bodies healed just enough to continue suffering. "This isn't possible," Marcus said, reading over my shoulder. "This has to be some kind of mass delusion." Then we heard the screaming. It came from the eastern edge of the clearing. Desperate, agonized, barely human. We ran toward it, crashing through the underbrush. What we found will haunt me until my dying day. They were in a pit, a natural depression in the ground maybe 20 feet across, and they were there, the missing people. All of them. But they weren't people anymore. They were living corpses, skeletal frames wrapped in sagging skin, eyes bulging from emaciated faces. Some were missing limbs that were regrowing, the flesh slowly, painfully knitting itself back together. Others had wounds that should have been fatal, a man with his throat torn open, the muscle and tissue visible. yet he was breathing, moving, suffering. The smell hit me like a physical force, rot and decay, and something worse, the stench of bodies that should be dead but weren't. A woman at the front of the pit looked at us. Her eyes were filled with such desperate hope it broke my heart. "Please," she rasped, her voice like sand on glass. "Please kill us." Emma vomited. David backed away, his face white. Marcus was frozen, staring in horror. I forced myself to move closer. "We're here to help. We're going to get you out." The woman laughed. It was the sound of madness. "You can't. We've tried. The forest won't let us leave. The forest won't let us die." "How long have you been here?" Sarah asked. "Time doesn't work here." It was a man speaking now, his face so thin I could see every bone. "Could be days. Could be years. We eat but we starve. We die but we wake. The forest keeps us." I looked at my team. We had to do something. We had rope. We had medical supplies. We could at least try to evacuate them. "We're getting you out," I said firmly. "All of you." We spent the next hour preparing. We used our rope to fashion a pulley system to lift people from the pit. We rationed out water and energy bars, though many of them couldn't keep anything down. The first person we pulled out was a young man named Thomas. He said he'd been a college student. He'd come to Graywood for a hike 16 months ago. "I've died 43 times, he said matter-of-factly. Fell, broke my back, couldn't move for days. Then I could, got an infection, fever took me. Woke up the next morning, tried to hang myself. The branch broke, my neck didn't. Not completely. Fixed itself by evening. As we worked, the others told similar stories. A woman named Lisa had starved to death 7 times. A man named Carl had tried to cut his wrists, the wounds healed in hours. A teenager named Amy had died from exposure, hypothermia shutting down her organs. She'd woken up the next morning, frozen but alive. The pattern was clear. The forest didn't allow death. It healed just enough to keep them suffering, trapped in an endless cycle of pain and resurrection. By 3 p.m., we'd extracted 15 people from the pit. They could barely walk, leaning on each other for support. Emma was trying to triage the worst cases, but what do you do for people who can't die? That's when Marcus called out from near the tree line. "There's something here, a structure." We found him standing before what looked like a shrine, bones arranged in intricate patterns, skulls stacked in the pyramid. And in the center, growing from the ground itself, was a tree unlike any I'd ever seen. Its bark was black, glistening like it was wet, the branches twisted in impossible directions. And the roots spread across the clearing like veins, pulsing with a faint, sickly light. "This is it," one of the survivors said, an older man named Richard. "This is what keeps us. We've tried to destroy it, burn it, cut it, poison it. Nothing works. It just grows back stronger." I approached the tree, feeling my skin crawl. The air around it was wrong thicker, heavier, vibrating with a frequency that made my teeth ache. "We need to leave," Emma said. "We need to get these people out of here now." I turned to organize the evacuation. That's when I realized we had a problem. The forest had changed. The trees that had formed the clearing's edge were closer, not by much, maybe 10 feet, but they definitely moved. The exit path we'd marked with orange tape was gone. The tape hanging from different trees now, leading in a wrong direction. "That's not possible," David whispered. Sarah was already checking her compass. "North is... I don't know where north is. The compass is spinning." Marcus pulled out his GPS. The screen showed our location, but the map around us was blank. Uncharted territory. We're trapped, one of the survivors said. There was no panic in her voice, just resignation. The forest doesn't let anyone leave, not anymore. I refused to accept that. We'd come in, we could get out. We had training, equipment, experience. Everyone stay calm, I said. We'll backtrack the way we came. We marked the trail, but the trail was gone. We spent 2 hours searching for our route, finding nothing but forest. The trees looked the same in every direction. No landmarks, no distinguishing features, just endless repetition. And then the sun started to set. We need shelter, I said. We'll wait until morning. Reassess when we have light. We may camp at the edge of the clearing, using our tents and whatever materials the survivors had salvaged. The fire we built seemed dimmer, the light barely pushing back the darkness. As night fell, the survivors told us their stories, how they'd arrived in the clearing over the years, how they'd tried to escape, only to find themselves back where they started, how they'd attempted suicide in every way imaginable, only to wake up the next day. The first few months we hoped, Richard said. We thought someone would find us. Then we realized the forest doesn't want us to be found. It wants us to stay, to suffer, to feed it. Feed it? Emma asked. Our pain, our fear, I don't know how, but this place, it feeds on our suffering. That's why it won't let us die. That's why it keeps healing us. Just enough, always just enough. Around midnight, the singing started again, closer this time. I could make out the melody now, a haunting refrain that seemed to come from the black tree at the clearing's center. One of the survivors, a woman named Margaret, began to sob. That's what it sounds like when someone new arrives, she whispered. The forest is welcoming you. I stood up, my hand instinctively going to the radio on my belt. Still dead. I pulled out my satellite phone, the emergency backup we brought. No signal. The screen showed full battery but zero connectivity. We were cut off, completely isolated. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the fire, watching the tree line, watching the survivors. Many of them were smiling, now not happy smiles, but the smiles of people who'd been alone with their suffering for so long that the prospect of company, even company that would share their fate, was a relief. David approached me around 3 a.m. We need to try something drastic, he said quietly. What if we burn it, the whole clearing, start a forest fire big enough that they'll have to send help? With what? I asked. We have 1 bottle of lighter fluid. And look at these trees, they're not dry enough to burn easily. We just create smoke, and smoke doesn't carry far in dense forests. So what do we do? I didn't have an answer. At dawn, we tried again to find our way out. This time, we took a different approach. We'd follow our compass south, no matter what. South would lead us out eventually. We walked for 3 hours. When we stopped to rest, I looked at my GPS. According to the coordinates, we'd traveled less than 100 yards, but we'd been walking steady, at least 2 miles per hour. The math didn't work. The space here is wrong, Marcus said. You look like he'd aged a decade overnight. Distance doesn't mean the same thing. We could walk forever and never leave. We tried east. Same result. North, west. Every direction led us in circles, brought us back to the clearing with the black tree and the pit of suffering people. On the 4th day, Daniel broke. He ran, just suddenly start running, crashing through the forest, screaming about getting out, about not staying. David went after him. We found them 6 hours later. They were sitting at the base of a tree, not 200 yards from our camp, both crying. "I saw it," Daniel said. "I saw what this place is. When I was running, I looked back and I could see it's like a bubble. The clearing, the forest around it, it's all contained in this bubble. And the bubble is growing, taking in more forest, more space. It's going to keep expanding until what?" Nobody had an answer. On the 7th day, Sarah died. She'd been organizing the survivors, trying to boost morale when she collapsed. Heart attack, Emma thought. We did CPR, everything by the book. She was dead for 4 minutes. Then she woke up. Her eyes opened and she drew a gasping breath, her chest rising despite her heart having stopped. The terror in her eyes was absolute. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." I was out. I was finally out. But the forest had brought her back. On the 10th day, I stopped counting. Time had become meaningless. My watch still ran, but the numbers stopped corresponding to reality. Sometimes a day would last 3 hours. Sometimes the night would stretch for what felt like days. The other teams, my original team, we were changing. Our clothes were getting looser. Hunger gnawed constantly, but eating brought no relief. We'd become part of the cycle. Marcus tried to hang himself on the 14th day. The branch held. His neck broke. We heard the crack from across the clearing. He dangled for hours, his body limp, obviously dead. Then he started moving. The bones in his neck shifted, realigned. He drew a wheezing breath. Eventually, he got free. He hasn't spoken since. On day 23, I decided to document everything. If we couldn't escape, at least we could leave a record. I found a working voice recorder in one of the abandoned packs and started recording. I interviewed the survivors. Each story was unique, but the ending was always the same. Trapped, suffering, immortal, but not alive. The pattern became clear. The forest, or whatever intelligence controlled it, was collecting people, adding to its population of eternal prisoners. Every attempt to escape failed. Every attempt at death was reversed. We were part of something vast and horrible, and there was no way out. I'm recording this now on day 47, or maybe day 300. Time has lost all meaning. More of us have died and come back. Emma now has a scar across her throat from where she tried to end it. David broke both legs in a fall and lay screaming for 2 days before they healed wrong, had to be rebroken and reset. We've become like the others, skeletal, desperate, trapped between life and death. The singing is constant now. We hear it day and night, that horrible lullaby from the black tree. Yesterday, if yesterday means anything, here we saw something that made it all clear. The tree at the center of the clearing bloomed. Black flowers with crimson centers opened across its branches, and as they bloomed, the boundary markers moved. The circle of cairns expanded outward. The forest was growing, taking more space, alone for more people. Richard, who's been here the longest, explained it in his broken voice. It started small, just this clearing. But every time someone new arrives, it gets bigger. It needs more room for more suffering, more souls to feed on. It's going to keep growing until it covers everything. I tried the radio again this morning. Always static, but then I heard something. A voice. Broken, distorted, but unmistakably a voice. Rescue team, if you can hear this, respond. My hands shook as I grabbed the radio. This is Robert Hayes. We're tracked in Graywood. Send help. Copy coordinates. Dispatch rescue. Hope. The first real hope in weeks. They're coming, I shouted to the others. They heard us. They're sending help. The survivors looked at me with their hollow eyes. They didn't share my hope. They'd heard it all before, and they were right. The new team arrived 3 days later. 6 people. Young, strong, well equipped, full of confidence. We watched them enter the clearing, watched their expressions change from determination to confusion to horror as they realized what they'd found, watched as they tried to leave and couldn't, watched as the singing started, welcoming them. They're with us now, trying to organize an escape, making plans that will fail. They don't understand yet. They will. One of them, a woman named Jennifer, demanded to know why we didn't warn them, why we didn't tell them not to come. I showed her the recorder, made her listen to all 47 days of documentation. She's crying now. They all are. Tonight, as I make this final entry, I can see the cairns moving again, the boundary expanding, the forest preparing for the next arrivals. Because there will be more. There are always more. The authorities won't stop sending rescue teams. They can't. It's their job, their obligation, and each team that comes makes the forest stronger, gives it more souls to feed on, more suffering to sustain it. I'm looking at the survivors now. All of them, the original ones who've been here for years. My team, the new rescue crew, we're all smiling, not because we're happy. We're smiling because soon we won't be alone anymore. The forest is patient, the forest is hungry, and the forest always gets what it wants. If you're listening to this, if you find this recording, don't send help. Don't come looking for us. Seal the forest, burn it if you can. Do whatever it takes to contain it. Because if you come here, if you cross that boundary, you won't leave. Nobody leaves. We're all here forever. And the worst part, the absolute worst part, we were never missing. We were right here all along.